I usually go jogging in the evening, just before it gets dark. It's the only time the air feels calm and quiet. The streets around where I live are usually pretty empty. The houses are spaced out, and you don't see many people outside. I always take the same route, down my street, through the open path behind the neighborhood, around the lake, and then back. It's around 3 miles total. Nothing weird ever happened during these jogs, at least not until last month. It started on a Thursday. I left around 6:30, a little later than usual. The sky was cloudy and a bit misty, but it hadn't started raining. I had just passed the old trail that leads into the woods when I saw someone standing off to the side of the path. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there with his hands in his pockets, facing the trail but looking over his shoulder now and then. He didn't look at me as I ran past. I glanced back once after I passed him, and he was still standing there, still looking at the trail. It was strange, but I didn't think too much of it. Maybe he was just waiting for someone. But then I saw him again the next evening. Same place, same clothes, same way of standing. He had on a dark jacket with the hood up and jeans. This time, he did look at me, just for a second. His eyes followed me as I passed, but he didn't move. I told myself it wasn't anything serious. I ran a little quicker and didn't look back that time. After that, I started noticing him more often. Not every single night, but maybe every other time I went jogging. Always in the same spot on the path. I mentioned it to my older brother just in passing. He joked that it was probably a ghost or something and laughed. I didn't find it very funny. One night, about 2 weeks ago, I went out later than usual. It was already getting dark by the time I reached the trail. The clouds were thicker, and it had started to drizzle a bit. I thought about turning around, but I figured I'd just finish the loop quickly. As I got near the woods, I didn't see him right away. The path was darker than usual, and my eyes were still adjusting. But then I noticed something just off to the side, a figure behind one of the trees. It was him. I could tell by the way he stood. His head was tilted a little, and I could just see part of his face under the hood. He wasn't standing on the path this time. He was behind the tree, like he was trying not to be seen. I didn't stop. I kept jogging, and I didn't turn my head. I acted like I hadn't noticed him. But inside, I felt like I had made a mistake. Something about the way he stood there, watching, made me feel like he wasn't just some random person out for a walk. I skipped the loop around the lake and went straight home. The next day, I didn't go jogging at all. The day after that, I told myself I was overthinking it and decided to go out again, but during the day this time, around 1 in the afternoon. The trail felt completely different in daylight. It was quiet, but not in a weird way. I didn't see the man. There were some people out, a few walking their dogs, a couple of people on bikes. I started to think maybe it was all just a coincidence. Maybe he really was just someone who liked walking at night. That thought worked until the next evening. It was Sunday, and I went jogging again at my usual time. The weather was clear, and it wasn't too cold. As I got close to the woods, I saw something lying on the path. At first, I thought it was a bag or maybe someone's jacket. As I got closer, I realized it was a bird. It was dead. Its neck looked twisted, and its wings were stretched out. I slowed down a bit as I passed. I'd never seen anything like that on the path before. Then about 30 feet ahead, there was another one. Same thing, dead, twisted, wings open. I don't know how many there were, but I passed at least 5. They were spaced out along the side of the path. No blood, no signs of anything else. When I got near the spot where I usually saw the man, I started to hear footsteps behind me. At first, I thought it was just someone else jogging, but the footsteps stayed right behind me. They kept pace with me. When I ran faster, they did too. When I slowed down a bit to catch my breath, they slowed too. I started to feel uneasy, so I picked up my pace. When I reached the loop, I heard some movement in the trees behind me. I turned around, and it was him, the same man in the dark jacket. He was standing in the middle of the road, looking straight at me. He was about 20 feet away. I felt more nervous than I had in a long time. Then he started laughing, a strange, uncomfortable kind of laugh. I just stood there for a moment, not sure what to do. He smiled, still laughing that weird laugh. We locked eyes for a second before I turned and ran, faster than I think I ever have. As I ran, I could still hear that strange laugh behind me. I didn't stop until I got home. I locked all the doors. I even locked my bedroom window, which I don't normally do. That night, I couldn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought I heard something outside, the sound of someone walking on gravel, or maybe even a voice on the wind. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that it was just my imagination. I don't go jogging anymore, and I stay far away from that trail. I've always liked jogging at night. It's the only time I can think clearly without my phone going off or people trying to talk to me. Most people don't like being outside alone in the dark, but it's always been kind of peaceful for me. There's this trail I like about 10 minutes from where I live. It's part of a big nature preserve. Trees on both sides, a dirt path winding through the woods, a few small hills. There aren't any lights along the trail, but if you're used to it, your eyes adjust. I usually go with a small headlamp and one earbud in, so I can still hear what's going on around me. I never bring both earbuds, just in case. This happened late last fall. I remember because most of the leaves were already on the ground, and everything smelled like wet bark and dirt. It had rained earlier that day, so the path was soft and quiet. No wind, just that damp, still air. I parked my car at the tiny gravel lot at the trailhead. No other cars were there. It was just past 11 p.m., a little later than usual, but I had a long day and needed to clear my head. I started jogging like normal, keeping a steady pace, watching where I stepped so I wouldn't trip on any roots or wet leaves. After about 10 minutes, I passed the old wooden footbridge that crosses a little dried-up creek. That's usually my halfway point. I go a little past it, then turn back around. That night, though, something felt a little different once I crossed the bridge. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't a sound exactly. More like the quiet got too quiet. I slowed down and turned off my music for a second. Nothing, just my own breathing and the soft sound of my steps in the wet dirt. I shrugged it off and kept going. Maybe another 5 minutes passed before I heard it, a stick snapping off to my right, deep in the trees. I stopped and pointed my headlamp in that direction, but the light didn't reach far enough. Just trees, leaves, and more darkness. It's a forest, I told myself. Could have been a raccoon or something. I turned my music back on and kept jogging. But not even 30 seconds later, another sound, this time behind me. It wasn't a snap. It was softer, like a shoe sliding in the mud. I turned around quickly and shined my light up the path. Again, nothing. I stood there for a while, trying to listen over the music. I ended up turning it off completely. I was more alert now. I looked behind me for a long time, not moving. No wind, no bugs, no sound at all. That stillness felt strange. I decided to turn back early. I wasn't scared exactly, just didn't feel right continuing. I started jogging back toward the footbridge. As soon as I reached it, I stopped again. There were footprints on the boards, fresh ones. The bridge was damp, and the prints were darker than the wood. But they weren't mine. Mine had a flat pattern, and these were different. Smaller, maybe lighter shoes. They weren't there before. I stood still, staring at them. They crossed the bridge the same direction I had just come from. That meant someone had stepped onto the bridge after me. I didn't see or hear anyone pass me on the trail. I felt a strange cold feeling in my stomach, like my body knew something before my brain did. I slowly crossed the bridge and kept moving. I didn't run, just walked quickly, headlamp pointing behind me every few seconds. Every few steps, I'd stop and listen. At some point, I turned off my headlamp completely and stood in the dark, hoping my eyes would adjust better. That's when I noticed something way back on the trail. A shape. I couldn't see details, but it was someone. Just standing there, not moving. I turned my light on again and pointed it straight at them. Whoever it was, they didn't react. I couldn't see a face, just a figure in dark clothes. They were maybe 50 feet back. I stared for a long time, expecting them to either say something or walk away. But they just stood there, still as the trees. That's when I started jogging again. Faster this time. I didn't run full speed. I didn't want to look like I was panicking, and honestly, I didn't want to trip on something in the dark. I just focused on my breathing and getting back to the trailhead. I didn't hear anything behind me for a while. Maybe the person was just weird. Maybe it was someone out for a walk who didn't expect to see anyone else either. That's what I told myself, anyway. When I finally saw the trailhead sign in the distance, I felt a little better. But right before I reached the parking area, I heard something again. This time it wasn't behind me. It was ahead of me, off to the left side of the trail. A deep, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled through the leaves. I froze. My light scanned the trees. I didn't see anything at first, but then I noticed movement. Another figure, standing just barely behind a tree. I couldn't make out anything clear, just the top of a head peeking out and part of a shoulder. I turned toward the parking lot and jogged faster. My car was right where I left it. I got inside, locked the doors, and turned on the headlights. The beam lit up the edge of the trail and the trees just beyond it. Nobody was there. I sat in the car for a few minutes before starting it, just watching the trees, waiting to see if anyone would come out. I backed out of the lot and drove home. Didn't listen to any music, didn't even turn on the radio. My head was spinning the whole way. I kept thinking about those footprints on the bridge, the person standing behind me, and that figure watching from behind the tree. The next day I went back around noon. Bright sunlight, totally normal. There were a couple people walking dogs, a few mountain bikers. Everything felt different. I walked out to the footbridge just to check, and the prints were gone, washed away or dried out. I looked around for any signs of someone camping or hiding out there, but there was nothing. I've only been back to that trail once since then, and I went during the day. I don't know what those people were doing out there. Maybe it was just bad timing, and I ran into someone strange. Or maybe they were waiting for someone. I try not to think about what could have happened if I tripped, or if my headlamp battery had died. The worst part is not knowing why they were there, or what they wanted. I've always enjoyed jogging in the early evening. There's something calming about it. The air starts to cool down, the streets are quieter, and the sky slowly changes colors as the sun drops. I live just outside town where it's more open. Lots of trees, fields, and quiet side roads. Not much traffic. Sometimes I wouldn't see a single car during my run. A few months ago, I started jogging a bit later than usual. I had gotten home from school, ate dinner, and lost track of time. It was already getting dark, but I figured I'd just do a shorter loop that went down a side road and curved back around through a small wooded trail before returning to my street. I'd done that route plenty of times. It was quiet and peaceful. Nothing ever felt off about it. That night started like any other. I had my earbuds in low volume, just enough to hear the music but still catch the sounds around me. Crickets were starting up in the grass, and the wind pushed lightly through the trees. My shoes tapped the road in a slow, steady rhythm. The streetlights hadn't come on yet, but there was still some light left in the sky. About 10 minutes in, I turned onto the side road. That stretch always felt a bit more isolated. No houses, just open space and trees on both sides. No distractions, no cars. Just me and the road. As I jogged farther, I noticed a figure ahead. He was on the side of the road, facing away from me, just standing there. It was odd because no one's usually out there. I slowed my pace a little, trying to figure out what he was doing. He wasn't moving, just standing completely still, like he was waiting for something. I kept jogging, thinking maybe he was looking at something in the trees. But as I got closer, I noticed he didn't turn or move at all. No glance, no shift, not even a twitch. He wore a hoodie with the hood up, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly down. Something about his stillness felt wrong. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way his shoulders were pulled up, or the way he seemed tense without actually doing anything. I decided to cross to the other side of the road as I passed him. I didn't want to run right by. I tried not to stare as I moved past him, but I couldn't help it. Just a quick glance. That's when I realized he was wearing a mask. Not like a ski mask or something for the cold. It was pale and smooth, like one of those blank plastic masks you see around Halloween. Just a flat face with no features. I looked forward and picked up my pace a little. I didn't hear him move, but I felt it. That quiet awareness, like someone was behind me. I turned my head just a little, pretending to stretch my neck. He was walking now. Still slow, still calm, but definitely heading the same way. I tried to keep calm. Maybe he was just out for a walk. Maybe he wore the mask as a joke. People are weird. I told myself I was overreacting. I turned onto the wooded trail, the part that cuts behind a row of old farm fences and connects to my neighborhood. The trees on both sides were tall and close together. It always got dark faster there. As soon as I entered the trail, I stopped and listened. Nothing, just the wind in the leaves. I didn't hear footsteps behind me anymore. Maybe he turned back, but I couldn't shake it. I kept going slower this time, listening more than running. The path is narrow and curves slightly, so you can't see too far ahead. I kept checking behind me, each time seeing nothing but trees and the empty trail. Halfway through, I came around a bend and stopped. He was there, in the middle of the path, just standing again. There was no way he could have gotten ahead of me unless he cut through the woods. And that part of the woods is thick, thorns, brush, uneven ground. It didn't make sense. I backed up a few steps, thinking of turning around. But then I saw something else. Behind him, on either side of the trail, were two more figures, also wearing the same masks, standing deep in the trees. One to the left, one to the right. All of them still. I felt stuck. I didn't want to go forward, but I didn't want to go back either. Then the one on the path tilted his head slowly, like he was curious. He didn't speak. He didn't move forward. He just stood there, tilting his head one way, then the other. The others stayed where they were, their pale faces barely visible through the trees. I turned and ran. I didn't care about the music or the trail or the dark. I just ran as fast as I could. My legs felt light, like they weren't fully touching the ground. The only thing I could think about was getting away from those masks, those blank faces. I didn't look back. I just ran until I got out of the trail and back onto the street. A porch light was on a few houses away, and just seeing it made me feel a little safer. When I finally stopped running, I turned around. No one was there. The trail entrance looked normal. I stood there for a while watching, hoping I'd imagined it. I knew I hadn't. The next day, I went back during daylight. I walked the trail, checking both sides, looking for anything strange. Nothing, no footprints, no sign that anyone had been there. I told myself maybe it was a prank. Some kids trying to scare joggers. But there were no signs of anyone else. No cars parked nearby, no bikes, no trash. Nothing. I never saw them again. I changed my route after that. No more trails. No more side roads. I stuck to busy streets, places with traffic and people. I still jog most evenings, but I never wear earbuds now. I like to hear everything. Every step, every movement, every little sound in the trees. I started jogging again this year. After sitting at home for too long, I just needed something to do. The gym was crowded, and I didn't really like being around too many people anyway. So I picked a quiet trail near my neighborhood. It runs along a stretch of woods, not too long, just enough to get in a good run and clear my head. The first few weeks were uneventful. I'd usually go in the early evening, right before it got dark. It was quiet, peaceful. I passed the same older man walking his dog a few times. Sometimes there were kids riding bikes. Nothing unusual. But one night, about a month in, I noticed someone new. I was halfway through the trail when I saw a man standing just off to the side, near the edge of the trees. He wasn't walking or running, just standing there. He didn't look like he was waiting for anyone. No phone, no dog, nothing. Just staring straight ahead, like he was zoning out. As I jogged past, I glanced at him. He didn't look at me, just stood there. Something about it stuck with me, but I told myself people are allowed to stand and think if they want to. It wasn't a crime. Still, after that, I started seeing him more. Not every night, but often enough. Sometimes he'd be in a different spot, leaning against a tree, sitting on a bench, or standing near the small wooden bridge that crosses over a creek. He was always alone, never dressed like someone out for a run or even a walk. I never saw him arrive or leave. He was always there. One night, I slowed to a walk because I was getting tired, and I noticed he was walking behind me. Not close, but just enough for me to hear the leaves crunch now and then. I tried not to look back. I told myself maybe he was just walking the trail too. But when I sped up a bit, the sounds behind me stayed at the same distance. That was the first time I left the trail before finishing my usual loop. I cut across a grassy field and walked down a side street that connected back to my house. I looked back just once and saw him still standing on the edge of the trees. I didn't run the next day, or the day after that. I told myself I was just tired, but really, I didn't want to see him again. After 3 days, I convinced myself I was being paranoid. People use the trail. Maybe he just liked being alone like I did. So I went back out, this time earlier, still light out. It was fine. I didn't see him. I started to feel silly for being so cautious. The next few runs were normal. It was starting to get cooler in the evenings, and the trail was less crowded. Leaves were falling, and the trees were starting to thin out. The quiet made it feel peaceful again. Then one evening, I was about 10 minutes into the run when I saw something that made me stop. It was a jacket. The same dark jacket I'd seen the man wear. It was hanging on a branch, about head height, right on the side of the trail. It didn't look like it had been tossed. It was placed there carefully, like someone wanted it to be noticed. I looked around. The trail was empty. I waited a few seconds, listening, but I didn't hear anything. I turned and jogged the rest of the loop a little faster than usual. I didn't see the jacket again after that, and I didn't see him that night either. A week passed. No sign of him. I started to feel normal again. One night, I stayed out a bit longer than I should have. It got dark fast, and the streetlights near the trail didn't really reach deep into the woods. I told myself it was fine. I'd done this route dozens of times. As I reached the bridge near the end of the loop, I noticed something on the ground. It was a shoe, just one, sitting neatly in the middle of the path. I slowed down and looked around. Still no one. No voices, no footsteps, no sound at all. I didn't touch the shoe. I just walked around it and picked up my pace. The next day, I decided not to go out. But when I took the trash out after dinner, I noticed something across the street. Someone was standing under the street lamp, wearing a dark jacket. I couldn't see his face. He didn't move when I looked at him, just stood there like he had on the trail. I went back inside and shut the blinds. I checked again after a few minutes, and he was gone. I didn't hear a car or footsteps. That was when I stopped jogging completely. For a few days, nothing happened. Then one night, I heard something outside. A soft sound like someone walking on gravel. I peeked through the curtains and saw a figure standing at the end of my driveway. I couldn't see his face, but I recognized the way he stood. I didn't go outside. I stayed in the living room and kept all the lights off. After a few minutes, he turned and walked away. The next night, I went to bed early. I locked everything and checked every window, but around midnight, I heard something. It wasn't loud, just the sound of something brushing against the side of the house. I sat up and listened. Then came a light sound near my bedroom window, like someone shifting their weight. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I pulled back the curtain just a little, and my stomach sank. He was standing right outside, looking in. His face was hard to see, but his eyes were clear. I dropped the curtain and backed away. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't know if he was trying to scare me or worse. I called the police and whispered everything. They said someone would be there soon. I didn't hear anything outside while I waited. I didn't even hear him leave. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. They checked around the house and said no one was there. But they found footprints in the dirt under my window. They said they'd do extra patrols for the next few nights. That was a month ago. I haven't seen him again since. But I don't jogging anymore. I haven't even gone near that trail.